What's up, guys? Glad to have you back. Hopefully, you've watched the last couple episodes. I know the last episode we got deep into some personal issues, some personal things that Pete and I had experienced, but we are back again. We survived. So, Mr. Pete Ramsey and me, Kelly McKay, we are here to talk HVAC business.
Yeah,
How you
man.
doing, Pete?
Dude, I am doing so good. Yeah, we apologize for getting a little too deep on the last one, but you know what? You leave two
Hey.
whack jobs alone to talk about things, you never know where the conversation is going to go. But yeah, we can bring it back to but it was good stuff because I got to learn some stuff about you I didn't realize, and it kind of helps you understand how
And vice
why
versa,
people are the
yeah.
way they are and everything else, and I think it's a good insight to do that because there's no sanity out there. We're all carrying a little something behind us, and we're all affected by this, and there's a reason why your customers act the way they do, and somewhere in the back of their mind, underneath all that emotion, there's a feeling that it's justified. There's no logic to it, but in their mind, they're right, even when they come up with these ridiculous claims and statements and everything else. But anyway, yeah, good point.
So we know what time of year it is. I mean, we're closing in on the end of 2023, about to begin 2024. I hope some people have started to look at their numbers and maybe plan a little bit for the future. That's not where we're going with this episode just yet, but as far as budgeting or planning. But what we are going to talk about today is price increases, because I know every January through March, we're always receiving price increases that time of year. And I know in some parts of the country, there's no doubt there's been some pushback. There's been some more people going with repairs instead of going with replacement, when it would make a lot more sense to replace. But, let's be honest. I mean, a lot of our economy lives paycheck to paycheck. And when groceries go up and gasoline goes up and the cost of living goes up and interest rates go up, I mean, it's if you were living paycheck to paycheck before, it's a lot harder at this moment in time.
It
at
is.
least for the moment. So a lot of, what do you call that? Like the extra cash flow, just
discretionary.
Discretionary, spendable cash is not there. And so that leaves people feeling like there's a lack, like they get into kind of scarcity mode. And when that happens, even if they could, get the loan to pay for the equipment, if they need new equipment, they might not do it right now. So it's already like that, in a lot of parts of the country. And so I know not everybody is experiencing that 100%, but some people are. And I know that when the prices go up, we have to pass those along to the customer. So it just makes it even worse. It just compounds the problem that's already existing. So that's what we're going to talk about. What do you do?
Yeah. And I think it is a reality. And I was talking to a coaching client earlier today, and he brought up, he was telling me the story about the call, and he's talking to the wife calls the husband, and he said, we really need to clean the drain line out while we're here. It needs to be done. And she said, she called her husband, and then she goes back. She says, well, is that something we can do ourselves? And he says, well, I don't know, your skill set level and what you're capable of doing. But yeah, there's people that do it themselves. No problem. I'll just take it off. I'll go fill out my paperwork and we'll close out. And he goes out, and by the time he gets back, she's changed her mind, says, go ahead and do it, whatever. So the guy pulls up a Mercedes-Benz, a late model Mercedes-Benz.
Sure.
And he's like, why is this person behaving this way? They clearly have the money. And so my point to him was, and what I wanted to share, and that's the purpose of this, is different people make different amounts of money, and they have different levels of money problems. And so even though they may be living in the bigger house and driving the newer car, the economy is affecting all of us a little bit. Some people a lot. And depending on where you are, maybe you don't feel it as much, but we're all being affected by this. And so when you start to get a little bit of that pushback, it's because they're feeling it too. And they need to prioritize how they spend their money. We need to increase the value and importance of what we do so that it becomes a priority. This becomes a burden of ours as well. But back to your point, price increases are around the corner. We were actually talking about this on one of our mastermind groups, and somebody brought it up. The guy came, the TM came in and told Ryan over there. He's the owner of Grove up in well, I won't say where he's at in case he doesn't want to be known. But good news. Well, bad news is we're going to have a price increase, but the good news is you won't be affected until next year. And he says, "Nice try,
Right.
buddy. I'm not taking a price increase, and I'm going to tell you what So he holds his market, but he's big and he can do that. But what about the rest of us, Kelly? We can't always throw our weight back, right? Because they'll throw their weight on us, and what do? Do we take that price increase? Do we have some negotiation ability in this? I've got a few stories. I don't know if you have a few stories, but how did you deal with vendors? Because they're going to bring it. They're going to try to get the price increase. They're going to get the price increase as a company, or let's just say as a district, whatever they're in your area, where they're wholesale or direct. But I don't think most people realize is that some people won't take that, or they want something back in exchange for that. And so it actually comes from the other guys who have to take it. Your big companies don't take the price increases as easily as the smaller companies have to. It's kind of interesting how this works, right? So it's not fair in the game of business. It's not fair.
No, it's not. And we were always told that our particular supplier, like it was known through the supply house, I should say, that everybody gets the same price. That's what they told everybody. And I know for a fact that's not true. And I know that because they sell the same equipment across the country. And I know for a fact that other people get better pricing in different parts of the country. So if they can do it in other places, I guarantee they're doing it here. It just depends on, how much you buy every year. I mean, the bigger customer you are, it's just like you and your HVAC business. If you had a great big customer that made up a good portion of your annual sales, you wouldn't want to lose that customer. Well, they're the same way. They don't want to lose the customer if they sell a lot of equipment for them. But just real quick before we move on, because I know I'll forget, a lot of times the more affluent people, during times like this, they wait for sales. It's not that people don't stop buying. I know, like, what I agree with what Pete was saying is that it affects them in different ways too. It does. It's not nearly as hard for them to stomach it. If it depends on how much money they got. I mean, let's just, they might have quite a bit of money and it's really not affecting them much at all. But sometimes the reason why they have money is because they do pay attention to their money. And so they are looking for a deal because they can afford to wait for a deal and just pay cash for it whenever that deal shows itself. So I've always thought and had the mentality that somebody's buying equipment every single day from different suppliers, from different, not different suppliers, but from different companies in your area. That new equipment's being installed every single day. So it's a case of when it does get tough, or when it's the holiday season, sometimes the more affluent will wait for those specials, those deals, those promotions. So don't forget to promote yourself, and have some type of a promotion of some kind. And then when it comes to, as far as like taking these price increases, I was telling Pete before we started recording that I've been in like coaching organizations where they just told you, like, write them a letter that says that you're not going to take this next price increase, and that may work if you're a great big company. I don't know. And you've got some push, some pull with the people you deal with every day in that company, because you are a great deal of their revenue for your area. But the smaller guys, they're not going to have that pull. They're not going to have that leverage. And if you don't have that leverage, what do you do?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got a
So,
story. You can go ahead and,
well,
go ahead
yeah,
and share your
just
story with me.
to, you had me thinking about that affluent thing, but the same is true with dealers. So a lot of times we get towards the end of the year and some of the dealers have a little bit of money put back in there. That price increase is coming. So they're going to go load up on equipment ahead of time. But I thought it was interesting because these guys have strategies as well, right? The equipment wholesalers and factory direct wholesalers, and they play these games. And this was, I don't know if you've heard of all of these, but this particular one was, he was a Lennox dealer. And you can take a stocking order on the Merit and Elite, but not on the Dave Lennox Signature Collection. We can't do that. That's what he sells, right? So they want to hold him off and get that price increase on that equipment. Dirty pool. And so that's a strategy. I was talking to a guy in the Vegas market. He has to pay, get this, an annual dealership fee. You got to pay $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year in order to be a such and such dealer. Let's say a
I think
Root.
that's pretty common with most of them. Yeah.
And so it's common in your area. That was unheard of in
Yeah.
my area.
Yeah.
It was unheard of. And we never did that. Now we had programs that if you were part of this level, then you'd have to pay into that. But there were benefits. There were advertising, co-op funds and things like that. But just for the privilege of selling my product line, just for the privilege of selling my product line, you're saying
no, I've not heard of that.
Okay.
So.
That's what I understand.
I see.
And so I'm like, where does that come from? Well, I think about the Sam's Club, right? Where you pay that annual membership and you don't want to just pay it, not, reap your savings back.
Go.
You're compelled to go buy, right? So that was an interesting strategy. So they're doing what they've got to do. And to your point, when you are a big fish in the market, or in terms of their budgets and their projections for next year, the last thing they need is to lose all your business and go over to the other big fish. Let's say you're from Lennox to Train, or from Train to Carrier, or wherever. Then you do have a little bit of pull. But one I heard was, and this was from another ex-territory manager, and he sold Carrier. His name is Dennis Homan, really sharp guy. He said that when you're going to have to take that price increase, you at least do this. You want 5%. What am I going to get? What concessions are you going to make this back up to me? And he said they almost always come up with something.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. So,
yeah.
So you have a story?
That's a great story, what you just said, because it doesn't hurt to ask. Like you're getting the price increase no matter what.
Right.
And if they give you nothing, well, then you basically got what you thought you were going to get.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to get something than nothing.
They'll give you something else just because you asked. It doesn't hurt to ask. So, well, when it comes to, I look at it as a partnership for one thing. So there can be a lot more to it than just being like, whatever Lennox calls their specialist, elite specialist, or whatever. Train's got Train Comfort Specialist, and but I look at it as a partnership. So, because let's face it, I mean, if they don't do a great job for you, it really is a burden to your company. If they're constantly screwing up your orders, they're not delivering your stuff on time, or they're not just making mistakes all the time. I mean, it can be a real burden, especially over the course of the year. I mean, you literally could waste hours and hours and hours. Especially like if you're, you don't live that close, and maybe you only get deliveries once a week like we did. It's a 15-mile drive or whatever to get to any supply house. So a lot of time is wasted with messed up orders. So I like to work with people who, pay attention to what you're ordering. And of course we make mistakes sometimes ordering it, and sometimes they would make mistakes, but we still need to, be cordial with each other, because we're in this together to make money. And so in order to do that and create this partnership and bond, and what I recommend is to look at what you've done with them in the past, put together some numbers, Put together a projection of what you think you're going to do next year and the year after that, maybe even three to 5 years ahead of time. If you're ambitious and you're driven and you want to grow your company and you expect your equipment sales to double a couple of times over the next 5 years, show that. Share your company vision statement with them. Share what your core values are at your business and what it means, to be partners with you. Like, this is not one-sided. You can go to any other, just like a customer can go to any other heating and air conditioning company in town, and there's probably hundreds to choose from. Well, there's other equipment manufacturers for you to choose from as well. So if you like working with somebody, then let's talk partnership. Let's act like we're partners. This is how I recommend to do it. Share your core values, share your mission statement, share your purpose statement, if you have that. That's how I look at those, by the way. And I know it's not, when you go looking for like mission statements and purpose statements and things like that, it's a mismatch of what you find. So in my mind, I've got a certain thing. It's vision statement, core values, mission statement, and purpose statement. So, but anyhow, share those things with your supplier. Tell them, this is what we're going to do. We're looking to be partners with somebody. How can you help me get there? And you just never know. I mean, you might wind up being able to negotiate some price, to not take in some price increases.
Let me add to that just a thought for those of you who are thinking, yeah, whatever. I'm not going to go take my mission statement in and try to, I just want to buy equipment. If you ever bought a used car, or if you ever had if you had a used car you wanted to sell, and you just take it out, somebody comes, or you just take the car out there and say, hey, I'd like X amount of dollars for it. I promise you, if you'll just take the time, take the car over and get it detailed. Put a little armor all on there, clean everything up, have the engine wash, clean all the degrease and everything else. Bring it over and put it out for sale. You're going to get substantially more money for that used car than you would had you not given it a better, cleaned it up a little bit and give it a nice shine. When you walk in and you're wanting to do business with these people, you need to bring in the shiny version of your company, that future guy. I was talking to my guy who just remodeled, he rebranded, as a heat pump specialist because he knows where those things are coming. And so the conversation we had is, because I don't know if I told you, you know this, Kelly. I worked as a territory manager, among other roles, for that side, for the factory direct. So I know how that game is played, and it is a game. And, the relationship you think you have is not, it doesn't reciprocate to the same level that you have. Okay. So they're not your buddy. This is business and everything else. And so I had a thought. I just lost my thought. So the game is not played. You continue with your thought. It'll come back to me here.
Or, well, I'll just add, while you're thinking of that, is what you said about the used car. You shine it up. You try to make, you present it as a professional, like a professional would present a car. You're not just going to throw this dirty thing over there. Well, same with the car description. Like, if you're going to write ad copy for it, you could tell a story behind the car that just says that this is, and it's the same as you walking in there and telling a story about your business. This is where I came from. This is where I'm going. I need a partner to help me get there. Are you guys going to be my partners? Like,
don't transition from that, because I got my thought back. He's exactly where I was going. So I was telling Dr. Heat Pump, don't go in there and say, hey, I want to sell heat pumps. Give me your best price on heat pumps. No, you roll in exactly what you were saying, Kelly. I love it. This is our new branding. We are going to be part of the heat pump movement because of all of the federal push on this, the tax incentives and utility rebates and everything else. We have decided to position ourselves as the area's leading heat pump specialist. So we are projecting a large amount of heat pump sales, high efficiency heat pump sales. And we're looking for a serious organization that we can partner with. We're looking for somebody who can handle our numbers, who can support our sales, and make sure our inventory is in place. Because when we sell this stuff, we move this stuff, we don't need to hear, oh, we don't have that in stock. We're looking for somebody who's going to take this serious. You talking about putting these guys on the edge of their seat. They're going to, and you may be a little old guy from the sticks that just put on a really nice, uniform, or maybe even a
Yeah.
business casual or whatever. And you
Yeah.
walk in and you present the Kelly method. Now you're onto something. Go ahead.
I think it's just part of being a professional. You just want to be another company that they don't give a shit about, and you come in and grab your equipment and leave all the time. Like it's about relationships. And we had a great relationship with our supplier for many, many, many years. And then the supplier sold to another company, and a lot of things changed after that. Like different managers came through, came and went, and then everybody at the front counter got swapped out for somebody new. Like, yeah, everything changed. Like
It
our
sure
territory
does.
manager passed away too. The people, the person who was like in charge of helping us market the business, who was in the marketing side, she still supported us the best she could, but she got a better position, like a promotion. So her job duties changed, which before that happened, there was more time that was allocated to dealers like us. And so we didn't get, and then the price increases just kept coming and kept coming. We just kind of lost touch. We weren't quite as close to them as we used to be. And we felt it, and we just didn't. So that's when we actually started looking for a different supplier. It's not that we stopped using them altogether, but we did start selling some other brands of equipment. And it was just because that partnership, but we had that partnership for a long time. I mean, I want to say like 7 to 8 years, and it was really good through all those times. I mean, we of course we had challenges here and there, just like any relationship would, but for the most part, it was really good. And that's who I want to do business with, is people who are upstanding people who treat you with respect, and they care about your call and getting your orders right and getting you your deliveries right. And if you got a supply house that just keeps screwing up over and over and over again, you, like somebody who works at the supply house who is not a manager or a territory manager, or who is I'm not trying to like discount their positions or anything. They have really important positions, and I respect the hell out of the people who take it seriously and do a great job as far as getting your orders right and making sure you get what you need. But if I have somebody or a whole counter full, 2 or 3 or 4 people up there that don't care and keep screwing my stuff up all the time, they don't understand. Those particular types of people do not understand how hard it is to run a business.
No clue.
And every time they send you the wrong crap on the day it's supposed to go in, or they, get rude with one of your technicians who's trying to find a part or something, like, at that point, it's probably time to look for a different supplier. So really look at this and pay attention to who you're doing business with. Be the kind of person that somebody and the type of company that any supply house would be happy to do business with. And of course, it's their job to do the same. This is not one-sided. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. So when you do have a warranty situation and you think about it, they're asking you to provide the labor warranty on something that's in warranty that was potentially defective from the manufacturer. And let's say that it's a furnace, and let's say that you're called out in the middle of the night. You're the one that has to get up out of bed. You're the one that has to go out there and deal with that angry customer. You're the one that has to find the defective, let's say, limit switch, the manufacturer defect, that would retail for, or let's say that you'd have to buy it wholesale for $15, and if you ever sold it, it would, retail for whatever times that. And you have to go to the supply house, get the part, maybe another day, come back, put it in. So you got all this time and labor and everything else. You came out of pocket on all this. And you know what the manufacturer did? They took that $15 wholesale part that cost them $2, and all they do is slide it across the counter and say, there you go. That's their skin in the game. And so it's not quite evenly yoked. And a lot of the bigger boys, they don't play that. They start having these repetitive calls. You owe me money, Mr. Manufacturer. I'm not going to go out there and be your, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's a piece of it. But back to the shiny part. I want to tell a story on how things have evolved. Now, when I was a train dealer, and I built up to a significant amount of train product. And so it would be the equivalent of today selling basically $1 million worth of product, right? And so some of these other companies were salivating to that. So I looked, there was too many carrier guys around, too many train guys around, and Lennox had one guy in town. So I ended up talking to the Lennox guy. So he invites me to come over. I go to their storefronts, very nice. Open up the door, and outside in the waiting room was a marquee. Lennox Industries welcomes Pete Ramsey of Ramsey Heating and Air. Like, oh my gosh, right? We go in, they had this whole reception thing ready. They had ordered some food in. They had a presentation. They put on this whole thing, and I ended up signing up as a Lennox dealer because, I'm like, 28, 29 years old, getting this type of treatment.
Made you feel special, didn't they?
Made me feel special, but that was nothing to what we did later.
Yeah.
Years later, I went to work for those rascals. And this is the way we did it then. You ready for this, Kelly? I would go over, talk to this train dealer, and we were recording them and said, we want you to take a day or two, and we're gonna fly you to the factory. And they're like ready to go to the airport. No. Meet over at X airport and bring your bags. So here they come, the husband and the wife and the service manager. They meet me at the private side of the airport. We walk into a private Lear jet. Everybody's sitting in this private jet and said, don't worry about turning your phones on, off. You can use them here. You won't have signal when we get to X amount of feet. The pilot and the assistant pilot are helping carrying the bags and everything else. Everybody's sitting there, popping out champagne, serving everybody. And we fly out to Iowa where the factory was. So we take a flight over there, and we're talking and whining and dining. We land, get a factory tour. Then we have lunch there at the manufacturer, and we meet all the management. They were so proud of their products, made in America, and all this other stuff. Yeah. Then we go on a plane and we fly down to Dallas, Texas, where the corporate offices were. We get settled into this private lodging, very nice facilities. And we take everybody out to dinner. Went to a high-end restaurant with the VIPs of the company. We're talking to top executives. They would sit down and say, guys, we really appreciate you coming in here. We'd like you to be part of the Lennox team. I mean, it was top shelf. Next morning, we get up, we go over to see product development. We go in and see how they package the equipment in such a way that it prevents damage in shipping, and just all these different things. The what do you call those seat testing? Remember those where they put these extreme weather and we simulate 10 years of tough service, tough rainy conditions or snowy conditions and all this different and how the equipment will hold up. And so by the time, we fly back and by the end of the day, you get to go home. You talking about being impressed. I don't think I ever flew anybody out there and they didn't sign up and become a full-time Lennox dealer. And that is in. And that's the way they used to play the game back when they had the money to do so. I don't think they do that anymore.
Well, crazy story here in Wichita, Kansas areas. We only got I'm trying to think of what year it was. It had to have been 2018. 2017 or 2018, I want to say. I've got to be close, very close. That's the first time we ever had a Lennox store local. If you wanted anything, how Lennox had all these special parts. If you needed a part for a Lennox unit, you had to order it. And it's at least a day away because it's coming from Kansas City.
Yeah.
And so we had Lennox dealers here, of course, still, but everything was a day away. That was one of my sales. I used that against people.
Sure.
When I'm kitchen counter sales, I'm like, did you know that Lennox, there's not a Lennox, dealer or a Lennox supply house, even here in Wichita. So like, if you need something, and let me tell you something, Lennox likes to make special parts that you have to get from Lennox. And when that happens, if they don't have it in stock, they're going to have to order it. Where, if you buy something from me, this this stuff is here right now. And they keep, a huge warehouse full of stock parts. So anyhow, it may have helped me sell a couple of jobs. I'm just saying. But that's all I know about Linux. To be honest, a lot of the older Linux stuff, which is what I worked on, I didn't like it. I've never been a fan of Linux ever. A lot of their, even the later versions with the in-shop burners and stuff, I didn't like them. I didn't like those units. I hated the blowers. Like, I'm talking primarily residential. I hated the blowers with the bolts on them. You undo the bolts. I mean, in some instances, I will say they were it's easier to pull the blower on those than it is the ones with the tracks that go the whole length, the whole shelf that separates the burner compartment from the blower compartment. Because sometimes those would get caught up and, they don't want to slide all the way in. You got to jiggle them and stuff. Where those Linux ones with the 2 bolts, that's no big deal because you just did the 2 bolts and it dropped right out. But I've just never been a fan of Linux. The DuraCurve, because a local guy here sold Linux for 30, 40 years. And so there's a ton of Linux stuff here. But a lot of Linux DuraCurves, Whisper Heats, a few pulse furnaces, not that many in town, but I'd see them a lot, like in the rural, like in the country for some reason. Nicer homes.
Yeah.
But so Linux, I'm not super familiar with, other than,
they've changed a lot. I haven't worked on it recently, but they came back more standard. They had their own low voltage wiring number, or what do you call it?
Terminations or whatever they called them.
Yeah. And then they went back to the traditional Honeywell, which was the standard. Y is for cooling and G is for fan, and red is your hot and whatnot. So that was from Honeywell.
My point is, there would be no territory manager coming to get me and take me on a private jet here, because there's not even a supply house here. They'd have to drive in from Kansas City or invite me to Kansas City. So I don't know how that worked, but I never once was ever approached by a Linux, to my memory, was never once approached by a Linux,
I wasn't either.
Supplier trying to get me to sell their equipment.
No, but I wasn't either. And I actually reached out. The guy's name was Eric. What was his last name? Sharp guy. Here's the thing. So these territory managers would come into my office. It didn't matter who it was, Carrier, Brown, whatever. They sit down and try to talk to me, and I couldn't ask them the hard questions because they didn't know. They didn't understand the equipment. And I would ask them things that I needed to know, technical things that I needed to understand to feel good about representing their line. And I was loyal to Trane. They're not loyal to me. They're setting up Trane dealers everywhere. I would sell the Trane product, and then they would use my design, everything else, the customer would, and say, hey, I need you to meet, Ramsey's design and do it this way and beat that price. Yeah. It was this stupid thing that particular area did. And I've got a little bit of beef with that particular area because there were it wasn't a good market to set up a business in, not a high-end business at least. So I decided, I need another brand to represent. And so I looked around and I called Linux, and I said, I'm interested in speaking to somebody. And guy called me back, and his name was Eric, and tall, very intelligent, charismatic guy. And he says, hey, Pete, it's a pleasure to meet you. He said, it's funny that you called me because I was just about to call you. I don't know if that was true or not. He says, I was talking to Eric Roberts, and he was one of the reps for the local gas company there. And I was asking him, who is the up and comer? Who's the big guy that I need to go after in that particular market? And he says, oh, you got to talk to Pete Ramsey. He said, man, those guys are this, that, whatever. And I liked it. I like both the guys, right? This guy afterwards. And so that's how it happened. So I don't know how true that was. He comes into my office Kelly, I could talk to this guy about anything, and he knew it all. He knew the inside of the equipment. He understood the business. He understand, how to the selling part. What
Yeah.
was it about this that made it sellable to the? And he was phenomenal. I left those conversations with more information than I had going into them, which had never really happened before. I mean, this guy was good. Based on that, I went to work, do business with Linux. But later I learned he was just an exception. He had come from the business. And so he did such a good job. But that's how it came about with me. So I didn't reach out with him either. But I did learn a lot and this is what I want to share, by being a dealer and then working on the other side. When I sold
Sure.
my business, I went to work for American Standard briefly, the wholesaler guy there. The company was not, it wasn't a good fit. They were okay, whatever. I just wasn't happy. But to justify my pay, they made me as the technical guy as well. So I had to be a sales guy and a technical guy. So if they had technical issues, they called me, because I was an old service tech. But they flew me out to Texas to sit through their training. And part of the training was we had access to their computer systems on the train side as well. I looked up my old account, my Ramsey account, and I saw the margins that they were making off of me. And they made more gross profit off of me. And you think about the gross profit for them, how much support did that require? I mean, they slide the equipment to you or whatever, you come pick it up yourself. Usually it
They're
wasn't
like a middleman,
it's
basically.
it's a little different than our GP. They made more GP off of me than I made profit off of, net profit off of myself. They made more money off me than I did, my company. And now I also learned this, because I went to work on that side, that depending on what part of the country you were in, the GP is different. Right? You can get, furnaces are very expensive down in Florida, right? But up north, you can get them, really cheap, obviously, because the volume's there. But even within areas, this market might be X percent, this market might be less. When I went down to Florida, they were single digit margins. Sometimes they were negative margins because of the way they're set up. Let me explain to that. Manufacturers sell to wholesalers. Wholesalers mark that up and sell to you. Sometimes they have to get competitive, so they go back and get a quote from the manufacturer, and they ask for what's called a competitive discount quote. I've got this project going up. My guys bid on it. I need to be at this price point. They'll cut them a discount so that the wholesaler is made whole, and so they still make their money, and the manufacturer takes part of that hit. Right, so they're making money on those levels. But when it comes to factory direct, they work the same way. You had the manufacturer, they had what's called transfer costs, and essentially in the books, they were buying it at a certain level, and they could also go back and get CDQs, right? And so it's funny how the thing is made, how this thing works. But you can go in certain areas, even within the same state, and they're going to pay more for that equipment in that area, just because historically people have paid that, right? So there's money there, and the manufacturer wants their cut, right? There's high-end
Yeah.
business there, they want their cut. So it's really interesting. They're dialed in. They're really smart. They're very savvy in business. And so when you start to understand that, you start to understand that they've got plenty of wiggle room, so you can go back and negotiate with these guys. And it's hard to do when you don't understand how the game is played, but just understand that you bring value, particularly as you start to get more and more equipment sales, because the last thing they need is to have to try to grow their business, what they've been budgeted, as well as replace the lost business that you might leave in your wake when you go back to it, when you change brands. So they'll work with you. So yeah, if you got a little weight, you can use it.
Yeah, and even if you don't have weight, like make some weight. It's kind of like how we motivate ourselves to get going, do what we need to do each day. And the business is, you got to be looking forward and thinking about what you are going to do, who you are becoming, right? What your business is going to look like in the future. You got to be able to visualize this and and write some stuff on paper. It's something you can't skip that part.
So with that in mind, we got price increases coming around the first, which is, it's right around the corner. We're not even at Thanksgiving at the time of this recording yet, but it's not too far away. Then we're going to go into 2024, and 2024 is going to be different than 2023. We don't know exactly how, but things are moving in a tighter direction. A lot of people are going to be adjusting their game strategy a little bit. And that relationship with your equipment manufacturer or your equipment supplier, as well as your parts and pieces and duct materials and everything, refrigerant pads, if you have different resources for these different things. So what are you seeing or what are you thinking on that, Kelly, as we move into times that are, maybe not as lucrative as they always have been, but, no two markets are the same, I know, but just overall, just generally speaking.
I mean, at the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself. If it's your business, you have to take care of yourself. I think that we have such big hearts.
Yeah.
And we have big hearts for the people who come join us in our business too. But that's why it's so hard to be in business. I talked about this today. We're doing our weekly challenge, our HVAC Accelerator Challenge. So forgive me if I'm a little bit tired. This was day 4, and we've had some late days. But anyhow, I've talked a lot this week. Just put it that way. But I think that we have to take care of ourselves. And if it comes to the point where it's a case of surviving and making sure that your family continues to eat and it gets lean for some reason, and you have to get lean, you have to do what you have to do. It's not personal. Even though it feels personal, and even the person, if you have to lay somebody off or let somebody go, it's going to feel personal. It's going to be personal. So, and I know I'm kind of going to like the most extreme case scenario. We want to do whatever we can to keep our people, but I'm just telling you, when times get a little bit tougher, you've got to take care of yourself. You got to make sure that otherwise, if there's not a fair exchange, I've talked about this, you're not getting a fair exchange for your business.
Yeah.
You will begin to resent your business. And that's the last thing you want to happen, because your business has so much potential.
Yeah. Yeah. And these coming times, one of the biggest assets that you can have is your own business. But to support what you were just saying, I was talking to a new client, and my heart was bleeding for this guy. He's struggling because he says, I just have a hard time charging these people that kind of money, knowing their financial situation, knowing that they maybe can't afford this. And I just can't bring myself to charge these things. And you got to love and respect
your family or their family. I mean, I love that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it goes back to that saying, if you're going to try to save everybody who gives you a sad story, then what happens is you might as well put that family's picture on your visor every time you get in your van, because you're supporting them instead of supporting your own family. If it comes to that,
So,
and you know what, when you charge what you need to charge, what's going to happen is you will build up a little bit of reserves in the bank account, so that when times like that do happen, you can do whatever you want to do. You can give it the whole service for them for free.
So yeah, you stole my thunder. That's where I was headed. Sorry. And Mr. Tired, and just mess with you. And so yeah, he had a big heart, but what happens is he's very uncomfortable being part of the process of determining the amount that it just costs. And when you sit down and actually do your financials, you start to apply specifically, and we can help you with this. Kelly can help you with this. Pete can help you with this. We sit down, we look at your numbers, we look at all the costs, and we can tell you, you can't charge a penny less than this for this particular service, because everything's built in here. Your vehicles, your overhead, your hourly, the burden labor on your employees, not just the labor, the burden labor and the overhead and the fuel to drive over there, and then the inefficiency time, the downtime, because you're not billable 2,080 hours a year. You're just paying people 2,080 hours a year, right? Or plus overtime. So once we dial into that, at that point, you take that option off the table. I can't charge. These are our prices. They're already fair, right? And so you can't take care of other people, to Kelly's point, if you don't take care of yourself first. So it costs what it costs. And you can empathize with people because there's not much you can do to help them with the cost of their car or the cost of their home or the cost of food and fuel and everything. We're all affected by this. And you just happen to be in that part of the process. It costs what
Think
it
of it like
costs.
this too. Think of it like this is like you could go to your supplier and you could tell them, man, guys, like I'm barely scraping by as it is. Like, look at my profit margins. Like, how are you going to raise your prices on me again? You think they're going to care?
Nope. They're going to say
They're
you need
not
to
going to
learn
care.
you need to learn how to run a business. You need to learn how to sit. We put classes
Exactly.
on here. You're not
So
attending to them, right?
it's no different than a customer giving you a sad story. Like, look, I've got the groceries are expensive and we have to work 3 jobs and like we've barely scraped by. Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'm just passing along the cost. I have to earn a bit, I have to earn money too. So
So we
yeah,
got
it's
to face the hard facts.
mhm.
We got to get dialed in on that and separate that from ourselves. You're not taking advantage of people. It costs what it costs. They can pay you or pay somebody else, and you're there to you're there to. I mean, it's a single event. If you take care of every person who poor mouths you along the way, you're gonna have a tough year, right? But this is a single situation that they have an expense that was unanticipated, and so the squeaky wheel goes and whatnot. But the reality of it is, they're going to get the money, and they either have it and they don't want to part with it, or maybe they don't have it. They need a little bit of help, but you're not their family. They have family and they have resources and they have that nice house, hopefully, and things like that. So don't take that
Half the
burden.
time they're living in a house nicer than yours and giving you this sad
That's
story, and
right.
we're
Yeah.
suckers for it.
Yeah. You were thinking the same thing, but yeah. So don't assume that burden. Everybody's got a family, and if they're looking to you to pay their heating and air bill, I mean, would you do that? I remember thinking that. Would I call the roofer out to my house and say, will you pay for part of this for me? I don't have much money. Oh, I would. Yeah, if I didn't have the money, I wouldn't tell the roofer. I go see my family, or go to the bank, or go,
Yeah.
pull my resources, and I wouldn't ask him to do it. I mean, that's how he makes his living. So there's that side of it too. I mean,
Well, I've said this before, but when it comes to your numbers, once you know and you understand the overhead costs that have to be
yeah, it's
covered,
very helpful, very sobering.
it lets you know that, hey, I can stop feeling guilty for what I
Yeah,
have to charge.
yeah, I love
But
it.
literally the guilt just melts away because it's like what you've been doing is getting you this result, and this result sucks and it's not enough. And then you understand now that there's a bunch more costs that you've incurred just because you're in business that have to be paid for, and the customer pays for everything. So if the customer pays for everything in every business, by the way, then I'm going to have to collect more money from the customer to help me pay for this. So I can still have something left over to grow my business. So guilt just means that we use guilt to maintain our sense of being a good person. So guilt always starts with, I'm a good person and good people don't blank. So in a technician's mindset, they think I'm a good person and good people don't rip off their customers or overcharge their customers. And once you learn your overhead, you realize you're not overcharging. Otherwise, you'd have money in the bank, or you'd be able to grow your business, or just pay your bills, or pay yourself. And when you come to this conclusion, finally, usually through some training, then you realize that, hey, I don't have to feel guilty anymore because I wasn't making it before. I wasn't earning any money.
And
That's why I've been struggling.
it also helps you explain why you can't discount. Now, I've got a very real. I'm gonna read something to you here. A very real example.
Okay.
So, a customer of mine sent me this, and it was a picture of the post that he received, and it said, "Hi, we'll call him Bob. It's not Bob. Say, hi, Bob.
Yeah.
This is quite higher than what we had expected. Can you waive the consultation fee and reduce the service costs? Also, do we need to replace the burners? Could they be repaired? For example, if you clean them and check them for loose wires, thank you. And he was like, well, how do I answer that? I'm so sorry. And so this was what I shot back up, and I'm just riffing here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we could. The service time is an actual expense of service that must be paid by the recipient. If I waive it, I would essentially be paying for it myself. As much as we can empathize with rising costs, we cannot afford to pay these for our customers. I hope you understand. As to the burners, we don't want to cut corners on repairs like these, as they are potentially dangerous if done improperly. We pride ourselves in the quality of our work, but trying to repair damaged burners would break more rules than just quality. Like I mentioned, it's about safety, which is one compromise we respectfully refuse to make. We would take risks that jeopardize our customers' health and safety. With all that said, I do want to acknowledge you. Perhaps you'd accept this free complimentary box of filters as a sincere response to your situation. But and he answers back, he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for letter writing. So he doesn't like to wordsmith, and maybe
Man, I wrote a really good one for somebody just like last month.
Did you?
Oh man, I was really proud of it after I wrote it. I was like, "Yeah, dang, that's good."
I gotta frame that.
I gotta find it now.
Yeah. So, but the point is, and it was just something that I spit out real quick on the phone, and so, but it was pretty good. It is say, look, it's a real expense, right? Somebody's got to pay for it. I can't just waive it. You're asking me to pay for it for you, because that's in essence what it is. And you want me to just clean damaged burners or try to repair damaged burners? I mean, we're talking about your health. We're talking about your life. We're talking about, you're putting your family at risk. We're not going to do that. Our name is on this job, our reputation on this job. And I would have to sleep at night knowing that something happened because I cut corners. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put your family at risk. Things like that. You trying to dig it up?
That's a good response. I'm looking for mine. I don't know if I'll be able to find it while we're just sitting here.
Yeah. So,
but it was just like last month and the month before, because we had one of my clients had a,
but wait, while you look at it,
client.
while you look at it, the emotions are going to come out. We have to be prepared for this. You need, first of all, to value your own services and understand your pricing. You need to get lean. Don't cut your marketing. Okay. The last thing you need to do is, measure your marketing, measure the results. If you are getting good results, or if you're getting work off of something, keep doing it. Right. But if you're losing money on something, stop doing it. But
I'm going to add to that is don't cut your pricing either.
Right.
Cut your expenses, get more efficient. Don't cut your pricing. You just, it's real easy to get into big trouble by, thinking it's all about price and resorting to a scarcity mindset and just starting to cut your prices back and back and back. If you're not equally cutting your expenses down, it's going to get you in a lot of trouble.
And I know the natural response to that is, hey, I've got to cut my prices. I'm not getting any work. I got to eat. And so there's something wrong if it gets to that point. Okay. If you've been getting work based on prices, and as soon as you start cutting your prices or raising your prices, you're going to lose that work. Right. And so if you're getting more and more of this feedback, we've got to get a clearer message, and you're going to have to stop attracting all types of customers. I talk about this all the time on my program, which is more of a marketing branding thing. But if you want people to pay top dollar for your service, they have to perceive top value. And it's more than just sticking your chest out and saying, we would do the best work. They don't know how to measure that. They measure it differently. And so this is more than a sales class. It's all about overall value and brand perception. What is it about you that makes you worth that? And so these are the kind of things that we all need to revisit, because it's going to get competitive for some people in some markets before others. And I've already got people right now that are feeling this. And I remember having a conversation with my son. He says, but Dad, I look at all these successful businesses. They had crappy name, crappy brands, and they still made it. And I said, yes, son, but that was in a different time. These multi-million-dollar gurus out there that are bragging about all the money they made are not starting and running small businesses today. They're already built and already established. And their big challenge is damage control as people start to pull back. Your opportunity is to turn this into your favor and leverage this forward and actually gain market share and grow and succeed as other people are cutting costs and in that race to the low price.
I took like a real quick mini course on it. It was just on pricing. It was like the impact of that pricing has on your profit. Pricing is the number one thing that can make a huge difference on your profit.
Yep.
Like exponential. It's not what you think. It's not that you can, increase your pricing 10% and then only get 10% out on your bottom line. No, it's more, because when you increase your pricing, it increases your revenue. And with that, it makes every percentage gets smaller on your cost of goods sold and your expenses, because it's exponential what you can do with pricing. So
yeah,
I know you can only, so it's not that everybody just needs to go raise their price. That's not what I'm preaching ever. It's because not everybody does. I don't know where you're at. It just depends on where you're at, if you're profitable or not.
Step number one is figure out where you're at. Yeah.
Yes.
And adjust. Yeah. Yeah. So,
but at the end of the day, profit, it has a huge impact on your profit. Your pricing does, without question. And so,
yeah, I'd love to see a chart on that. We ought to put something together on that. I bet the vision.
I got something. I got like a little presentation that I did for my group, because
did you hear what he just promised on our next podcast? We should wind down, Kelly. We probably hit. I didn't check the clock, but I think we probably passed the 1 hour, and there's probably only 2 people left listening anyway.
Yeah, I got to send you that response, because I was really proud of myself. So
Okay.
I didn't find it yet, but it was, I thought it was really good. As far as like,
if it's good, I'll steal it.
Review, so what's that?
If it's good,
absolutely use it. Absolutely use it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great job, my brother. I know it's been a long day. Thank you for putting in the extra effort to squeeze us in tonight. For those of you who are watching this, listen to this in the middle of the day, it is 10:30 p.m. and my time and Kelly's time's a little different, but we're out here putting in the late time so that you got a little something to listen to driving out there. Hopefully brought a little bit of value to your day. And you want to close this out, big boy?
Hey man, it's just good to be here. Always a pleasure hanging with you, speaking with you, talking HVAC business with you. And, just hang in there. I'll just tell everybody who's listening, just hang in there. Like, you got this. No matter what the economy does, you create your own economy. Keep your mind right. Keep moving forward. You're ambitious and driven. You're determined. Ain't nothing going to stop you. So just keep going forward. Keep working hard, and you'll get there. Keep listening to podcasts keep listening to our podcast. Damn it. Listen to us.
Yeah.
And keep learning. Just keep learning, keep growing. And there's no question, like it's possible to continue to grow no matter what's happening in the world around you. Yep. You can create your own economy, literally. So,
amen. Good points. Yeah. All right, my brother. Well, you guys be safe out there. We'll talk to you on the next one. Appreciate you listening, and do share and give us some comments. Let us know what you want to hear, and we'll talk about it. Okay. Catch you guys on the next one. All right.